Go. You look great.
Thank you.
All right.
Is my head okay? I don't have.
Perfect.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Randy and I
are. Oh, turn the lights on. Keep talking.
No, you don't have to wear a tie. You don't have to wear a tie. Randy and I are really excited. We've been having some laughs prior to. We're really excited on Mindset Live today to talk with Jay Abraham. He's an icon, and I'll speak for Randy and I both. We've learned from you through the years. You've been a mentor to both of us. Maybe you didn't know it, but we did. You've been you're CEO of Abraham Group, and you're known as the $21.7 billion man. And so right before this interview, I said to my son, who's on a 15-minute break in between classes for virtual, he's a senior in high school, I said, Jacob, I'm about to go interview someone, and they call him the $21.7 billion man. And he was like, that is so cool. So, his first question was, does he make that much a year? Right. Yeah. So Jay, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for everything that you've done through the years to make people like myself and Randy and everybody just better people. So I start off with gratitude.
Gracious. Thank you for that. The greatest compliment, and I'm going to talk. I'm in a wine cellar, and I got people walking around, so I'm going to shut the door. The greatest compliment I can get, hold on one second, is not how great my stuff is, but it is how meaningful it impacts somebody's life. When somebody does something with it, applies it, elevates, not just themselves, but their sense of contribution and value creation, it thrills me. So thank you for that information that shows me you're doing something with it. It means a lot.
Yeah. And what I love about what you just said is, I always look at things as, I'm a business coach. Randy's an estate attorney. I'm a business coach. I have a business coach. And a lot of times we'll talk about, you learn things from each other, from a coach, from a book, and it's delivered to you with a certain frequency. And then you take your own frequency and make something of it. And you just keep the frequency and the vibration going. And so my first question to you is, how did you find this frequency of even doing what you're doing to make an impact in other people's worlds while fulfilling yourself?
Quite accidentally. I got started at age 18. I got married, had 2 kids very young, and no education. And it was very difficult to find any meaningful salaried employment, but I was able to get a lot of crazy entrepreneurs, pardon me, who would give me no fee, no salary, but give me the chance to earn variable income based on performance. And I tended to be a transitory person. I would jump from one industry accidentally. I didn't do it on purpose, not one job in a field, one industry to another. And I was able to do it multiple times because I wasn't being controlled by hours, so I could do 2 or 3 things concurrently. And after about 10 industries, I look back and realized, wow, people in industry A, John, Randall, they don't have a clue what people in industry B or C do, how they think, their different strategies, business models, access vehicles, positioning approaches, lead generating, distribution channels. And after a while, I was able to take hybrids that were very commonplace to the industries I'd been involved in, combine them together and turn them into hybrids I was able to use in new industries that I got involved in, and they all just grew. We did Entrepreneur Magazine, and it grew hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, well, thousands of percent in the first 9 months. We did Icy Hot, and it grew something like 25,000%. We did all kinds of financial newsletters, and they grew. We did brokerage firms, and they grew. And it was really an interesting, that was the first stage, and there's 2 more because they might be interesting to your viewers, and I'm mentally getting my mind alignment. So I am a poster boy for adult ADD, so bear with me. The second, which is really cool, is that I lucked out. I gravitated to them or they were attracted by me, but I found entrepreneurs who, while they were crazy, they were each and every one uniquely and wonderfully committed to either fill gaps in their industry or their category that no one else was filling, or add tremendously enhanced value to what was already being done. Now, semi-disruptive, but I, through osmosis, got indoctrinated, inculcated to these mindsets, and the combination converged and congealed of me seeing that I could borrow commonplace concepts from outside an industry, apply them to places that didn't know them, and it was the equivalent of and I could combine hybrids from many industries, and it became the equivalent, very frankly, benevolently speaking, of the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. I don't know if that helps you.
No, absolutely. No, I love that answer.
It sounds like Jay, it's almost, you had a quote that you, in one of your, many interviews that really resonated with me, was you have an uncanny knack for understanding the void. Can you speak to the budding entrepreneur or the existing entrepreneur about understanding the void in their business and how that might be a great, catapult for reaching the next level?
Yeah, sure. Well, let me give it to you in an easy, I like metaphors, similes, analogies that help people relate, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please.
So, let's say you are in a generic type of a business. Unless you understand very intricately the role of a true entrepreneur and not a proprietor, you're probably unintentionally defaulting in some level or a lot of levels to being more of a commodity. You may not even know it. So the first thing is, if you are a commodity, you have to realize that there's no way being a commodity, and also if you have defaulted to marketing, strategizing, positioning, selling, advertising, pretty much status quo the same way everyone else does. If you have those two, frankly, negatives working against you and you're not even aware of it, there's no way you can break out of the maddening crowd and get, and stand out. So the first thing is, ask yourself, am I really a commodity and have never acknowledged it? Am I basically following the herd? Because if all you do is what everybody else does, marketing, strategy, advertising, and maybe you're 20% better or 20% worse, the absolute maximum you're going to do is incremental growth. So if your goal is, first of all, to be the ultimate, the only viable source people want to turn to, which is being preeminent, the go-to source, the most trusted source, and you want to be preeminent, but you also want to operate not in the incremental zone, but in the exponential zone, you've got to shift a lot of awareness. First of all, is the role of an entrepreneur is to add value above and beyond everyone else, to create an experience that is so impactful and memorable that people, if you sell something more than once, people wish to deal with you continuously. If you don't, they wish to tell other people about you. You've got to figure out what that is. A good way to start, and it's a great question, I've never been asked it. If I were doing it, the first thing I would do is take the generic business I'm in, every related alternative means there might be to achieve that outcome, and I'll give you a couple of examples. And first thing is I'd look up, excuse me, let me just turn this off. The first thing I would do, you got to be in my home, and I got a crazy home with lots of phones and lots of kids all over the place on their computers. So I got relegated to the wine cellar. So the first thing I would do is look up reviews of myself.
Yeah.
I'd want to know what people think about me, and I'd want to look at both the good ones and the bad ones, and I would want to separate them. Then I would look at all my direct competitors, and if I'm localized or regionalized, I'd look at them, and then I would go and look at everybody else that's top of the heap in my category outside my competitive world and see what people say about them, good and bad, and I would separate those. Then I would actually go to the next level. I would look at alternative means, meaning literally I'll give you an example. Let's say that you were selling a supplement that was ingestible for weight loss. Well, I'd start by looking at every other weight loss company that was relevant, but then I'd look at every alternative. Alternative could be portion control food. It could be personal training, online group training. It could be equipment. It could be, well, not very much right now, but fitness clubs. It could be books. And I want to see what people say about all that. And while I'm doing that, I'm doing three things. I'm trying to see where there are voids. I'm trying to see what rocks people's boat, what turns them off. And the greatest thing about it is while I'm doing this, it is providing me with three things. Insight to calibrate how I stack up against the maddening crowd. Number two, it's giving me insight into the mind's eye of the marketplace, because when anyone is passionate about anything, positively passionate, guys, or negative, their subconscious will override their conscious. And when they're not being vulgar, they will say such amazingly sinewy and precise and dimensional things that you will be able to see exactly what they want and what they don't want. They will tell you not just figuratively, but literally. They will give you copy. They will give you sales approaches. They will give you email scripts. They will give you phone scripts. And you can use all that, first of all, to make whatever you do more dimensional in the eyes of your market. Secondly, to see if there are combinations, there are integrations that you can innovate, additive, or companion sell to the market you want to reach. And I'm getting a little esoteric, but I ask people always to see what people buy before, during, after, and instead of what they buy for many reasons. You want to see if there's ways you can, I'm getting way tangent and rogue on you. You want to see if there are ways that you can preemptively get access to a market before they're ready to buy yours. You want to see if there are products or services you might want to sell to get access to that market, or you might want to package. You want to see what they buy instead of you, so that you can either out position that, or maybe actually partner and sell that to people that don't buy from you. And you want to see if there are hybrids you can create to enhance or morph your business model. I don't know if my answer got way protracted, or whether that helped.
It absolutely helps, and it, by the way, it sounds so much better. Also, A, from you, and B, while you do talk in a wine cellar. I just have to, it's a great backdrop. I have a question, Jay, for you. It's kind of a multi-tiered question based on what you just talked about when it comes to understanding the void. You're talking about raising level of awareness with a focus on entrepreneurs. And right now, I think we're in a really interesting, time in the world. Pre-COVID studies have shown that by the year 2030, 85% of the jobs that exist don't exist today. That by the year 2025, millennials will occupy 75% of the global workforce, and that doesn't include Gen Zs. And so I know that you have been talking about 5 windows of short-term opportunities. So, with everything that's going on, with COVID accelerating those studies, what are some of the windows right now for entrepreneurs in this day and age?
Sure. Well, I'll go through the 5 because I've talked about them a lot, and it's a window that's closing, and it's really tragic because I share it, lay it out, and almost everyone goes, "Oh, it's so cool," and nobody does anything with it, which is really amazing to me, because there are these, not millions, there's hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of resources that are at the beck and call in the palm of your hand if you just actuate. But a lot of people, and it troubles me immensely. They use expertise as intellectual entertainment instead of catalyst to propel action. Very interesting. Anyhow, so the 5 easy windows. The first window is a 6th one. It's a prefacing window. Is do what I say. Figure out what people buy before, during, after, instead, and start trying to figure out how you can benefit from all of those activities for a very important reason. If you sell anything expensive, if you can get control of buyers who buy before that, whether you partner with that company or whether you go into the business to do that kind of product, even on a break even, it will lower your acquisition cost of a sale enormously, and it will give you far greater preemptive access to the potential buyer than everybody else that you're competing against. So that's a throwaway. There's 5 windows that I identified 5 months ago or 6 months ago, whenever it started, and they were wide open. Now they're like about that. If you don't hit on them, shame on you. The first one is that today you are not the only entrepreneur or business owner or professional who is uncertain about what to do, why to do it, how to do it, what in the world the strategy should be. Almost everybody is, with very little exception. That works to your advantage because you will never, ever, ever have another opportunity to partner, joint venture, get endorsements, get collaborative sales, co-op deals with all kinds of other companies, media, associations, organizations, bloggers, podcasters, influencers, because they need money and they're trying to find answers, and they are more open and susceptible than you'll ever imagine. I did a deal a couple of months ago with 100 radio station because their business dropped 80%, and they were burning through unsold advertising, and we put all kinds of deals through them strictly on performance. I've made 20 deals for my clients in the last couple of months with people that would never give them the time of day, that had access to their audiences and had the trust of their audiences and could deliver huge access because those companies wanted more cash flow themselves. So if you don't hit on that, it's shameful. It doesn't matter whether you're large or small. It relates in your local community. We had one time an optometrist, an ophthalmologist who did a deal with somebody like you, Randy, somebody who did wills and all kinds of processes like that, and they just did a reciprocity, and they did amazing. So the point is, think about doing that right now, not next month or the month after, because the window is closing. The second is an extension of that, and it's really cool. There are an enormous number of businesses that are on the ropes. They are barely getting by, or they are negatively getting by, and are going through paralysis where they don't know what to do. If you can identify who they are, what they are, and you can understand how to take their business, and very frankly, more easily the assets of the business. You don't even need the business. You can get the buyers, the prospects, the sales force, the URL, the phone number, any intellectual property they have, ads that maybe don't work well for them because they have too much overhead. And if you consolidate it into your organization, if you've already got infrastructure, you can do a great service to that entrepreneur who's breaking even or losing money and is on the verge of going out of business. You can pay him or her a percentage of the revenue that comes from those assets you take over, for as long as they monetize, and pay them a lot more than they're probably making now. Or you can do a buyout for any amount you want to pay them, payable at 50% of the profit you take in, and you'll never go negative on it. You'll always be ahead. You can overpay 3-4 times market, and it doesn't really matter as long as the assets monetize, and if they stop, you stop. That's the second, and it's huge. The third is really a sleeper. If you look at the unemployment numbers today, I think they're down. I heard it was 30 million. Maybe it's less. Maybe it's more. They tend to polarize at 2 different points in the continuum. On the low end, low skilled, and then on the high end, super skilled. I have great empathy for the low skilled, but this discussion, one of my kids is getting a dog delivered by a jet today. He bought a dog, and it's supposed to come, and I'm looking for the phone call, so bear with me.
Yeah.
Tell me it's coming, and I got to prepare for it. So pardon me, low skilled, I have great empathy for, but this is not the discussion for what to do to help them. Superskilled is a sleeper because many of those people lost their jobs because they either had their functions consolidated, the role got eliminated, or they frankly were too expensive on the payroll because they're making six figures and got terminated. What no one thinks about is before they lost their job, these super skilled people, by and large, interacted at enormously trusted levels with decision makers, influencers, key operatives in businesses that many people would give their left you know what to have access to: CEOs, CIOs, plant managers, CFOs. And if you find them, which you can, but with the proper search filters on things like LinkedIn, you can go to them because they're sitting basically getting unemployment and struggling and starving and paralyzed themselves and maybe getting job offers well below what they're used to and fearful. And if you win their trust for your company product, you can get them to connect you to people and companies and decision makers you wouldn't be able to access in a million years, and just pay them a share. The fourth category it's macro, but it gets very micro if you want to. It's salespeople. Loads of salespeople have been unemployed because either the company consolidated and they weren't the top salesperson, or they were the top salesperson and they want to get rid of their cost and move to somebody else who could be less expensive or take it as a house account, or the product or service became less sellable for any of a number of reasons. These salespeople who are generalists or very specialized are sitting around, used to making a lot of commission, performance-based, most of them. They might have gotten a base. You can find them very easily, and you can find them categorically, and you can get them to do one of three things. Either the three things I just said, if you don't have the time, the interest, or the ability to contact those three categories of opportunities, or you can get them freelance and performance-based to sell for you. And then third, if they do a good job, they can win employment. So that's the fourth. And then the fifth is really cool. It's a little bit more entrepreneurial and it's a little more avocational, but it can be very lucrative. I call it buying assets and access and then deciding whether you want to keep them or flip them. And the easiest analogy I can make is that I'll tell an older story. 30 some years ago, a former colleague of mine at one of my last paid jobs, pardon me, quit the job in Santa Barbara, moved to Los Angeles, didn't have any business or any job, looked around for opportunity and realized that the Rose Bowl, the stadium that they played the Rose Bowl in, was only being used by the Rose Bowl in January or whenever. It was being used on Saturdays for UCLA football games. It was being used occasionally for concerts at night. The rest of the time it was really empty. It had huge parking. It had huge display. He realized it would be perfect for a flea market. He went to the county, tied up a long-term renewable right to do flea markets there for a percentage. And as long as he hit the benchmark, he got it renewed. He didn't know anything about it, but he had a provision that he could bring partners on. Once he had the papers tied up, he went to the #1 flea market management company and he flipped that right for $500,000 plus a percentage that made him millions of dollars for doing nothing. So you can get rights to access, you can get rights to use the brand. Many years ago, I was very big in the newsletter industry, and all newsletters were doing with their newsletter was sending it out. They didn't do anything with it. I bought the rights to branded inserts and made $10 million the first year. I bought the rights to a lot of books that were out of print, but were evergreen, and cut them down to $59 reports. And sold, I don't know, $5 million of them. I bought the rights to create co-branded distribution to all kinds of sales forces that were calling on targeted audiences that other people wanted, but the salesmen were only selling one thing. You can acquire it for yourself. You can acquire it for others. I got many more, but those are 5. I hope that helped.
Yeah, those were great.
Yeah, so I want to switch gears and let's have some fun. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, which I think is your dream job, I think
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Fulfillment in doing what you're doing, and your soul is aligned with what you're doing. What would your second dream job look like, Jay? With all the industries you consulted, what is the one that fancies you the most?
It would be being compensated adequately enough, Randy. Excuse my voice 1 second. I'm so sorry. It would be being compensated adequately enough to be a host, interviewer, moderator of all kinds of interesting people in Socratic interview designed to, with no agenda other than to discover who they are, what they know, what they do, what drives them, what their current reality is against others, what their hopes, dreams are, what their interests are, what they understand that other people don't. Be a torque converter for them to everyone else and to myself, and just sort of layer crisscross like Kevlar and bulletproof my own expanded knowledge and be a torque converter with the ability to translate, integrate, and analogize what all that means to other people and what it can mean if they acted on it, implemented, integrated it, things like that. I love things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answer makes sense.
You're applying for a job with John and I.
You can be a tri-host with
But I'll
us.
tell you something funny. I'm a hypocrite because, very interesting. I have a podcast. It's very interesting because it's eclectic. And I should and could every day or week doing interviews, but I'm so busy working with operating businesses that instead we take things like this and we give you a forum, and I'll take we'll ask you for the video or audio, and I'll put it up in your behalf on mine. If I do a keynote, my keynotes are never the same. We put those up.
Yeah.
And, I just came back from a full day with Tony Robbins and his platinum partners and his Lions, which are his high-end people. They pay, I think, $85,000 and $150,000 to be in association. And he and I do a whole day together of problem solving, opportunity mining. He calls it pitch and catch. And I'm fortunate I get the rights to all the video and we put it out and share it. I just do lots of eclectic things, but I should do more interviewing. You asked me what I'd like to do. If I was more singularly focused, I'd be doing a lot more of that now. But I have this is very interesting, and other people should do this too. I have a team that full time is always looking on LinkedIn for interesting people for me to interact with no agenda at all. Just interesting people that represent a spectrum of categories I gave them. And the first thing that always happens when we talk, and I'm interesting enough if they do just clinically, if you do a search on me, I'm fascinating enough. You're curious why I want to talk, but you're always like this thinking, I'm going to try to sell you something. I have no agenda. I don't care. I don't care about monetizing it. These people are successful in a broad spectrum of domains. I want to know what they know that I don't. I want to know how they look at life, business. I want to know what forged them, what drives them, what they see in the future, what their marketplace is either struggling with or optimizing. I want to know anything I don't know about anything I don't know. And I think if more people watching, listening, were willing to expand their paradigm and extend out their scope of understanding, they would be so much stronger, richer, more powerfully able to outperform, outthink, out-market, out-strategize, out-empathize with the marketplace above and beyond their competition.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Jay, on the notes. I don't know. I'm echoing, but on that note, what's the first step for somebody to, grow their confidence and their courage? One of the things, Randy and I were talking about a blog of yours right before we started, which is the Mammoth Mindset. there's a law of proximity, I think, where sometimes people get stuck and get stuck in their own way. And what's one thing somebody, an entrepreneur, a business owner, somebody who's stuck in a job and wants to build their own business, anything really, what's something that they can do to raise the courage and confidence to take that next tough step so they don't look back with regret 20 years from today?
Well, my answer is going to be a little bit maybe stunning, maybe startling, maybe cause you to be a little incredulous. I don't think most anybody does any kind of a meaningful job of intelligence gathering. When I do private consult, we have a 200 question assessment we send people, and about 4 or 5 pages ask for intelligence that they possess about their direct and indirect competition. And most of them don't have any answers because they don't even study them. They don't try to understand why they get business that my client doesn't, what their strengths, weaknesses, marketing strategy, how, where they market. I think the first thing is to study and create intelligence. If you want to, let's take different categories. If you want to go into business, the biggest mistake most people make, and I'll give you a metaphor for this. And again, I'm an adult ADD, big poster boy. So years ago, John and Randy, I had a client that was the number one guy in the world. I had a lot of experts at teaching people single family home investing. He had a rule: do not invest in your first home until you've looked at 100 different deals. Because once you get the urge to be a single family homeowner, you're going to buy the first damn thing you see. Whereas there are lots of alternatives that have more upside, better terms, more utilization capability, better perceived value, so they'll command more incrementally. But you won't know that if you're fixated like this. I tell people who want to go in business, don't just go into the first thing. Study a lot of different areas and create a criteria. Risk, reward. I've said this to you, but I was involved in Entrepreneur Magazine in the very beginnings when nobody even knew what the word entrepreneur meant. We had to send out, and this is relevant, it's not tangential or rogue, we had to send out marketing pieces with envelopes that had the Webster's Dictionary excerpt of not just what it meant, but how to pronounce the word. Now, I'm telling you this because Entrepreneur got started publishing startup manuals about emerging small business categories of opportunity. And we would go through and say risk, investment, reward, asset value, who the best franchisors were, how to do it independently. If you want to start from scratch and you don't want to franchise, how to find somebody successful that you could license their methodology, all these things. But most people decide, I'm going to do this, and they find somebody selling a tactic online, and I hope I'm not demeaning you guys. And that tactic is meant to convey to them that if just by buying this training program, you could be in front of your computer in your underwear, and after studying most of it, not all of it, you're going to make $1 million a year with no risk, effort, or investment. And even though that program has been sold to 1 million others who are doing the same thing the same way, you're going to emerge victorious. Whereas there are a lot of better alternatives to explore and examine. And unless you get intelligence on different industries, different companies in that industries, different trends, different ways people are accessing the market. This is hilarious. I just picked up a company that sells a direct to consumer, believe it or not, to rabbit owners, chinchilla owners, and what's the other? Rabbit, chinchilla, and I gotta remember what the other animal is. And they do an outrageous number of millions of dollars. Find niches, find categories that aren't being filled. Yeah. Go to review sites, see what people are complaining about, not what they're enthralled with, because what they're enthralled with, if you're starting from scratch with limited capital, knowledge, and marketing prowess, you're not going to be able to provide whatever the people they love. You got to find the niche, don't you think? The advantage. So, I mean, I think most people don't. And then if you want to really broaden your mind, I mean, if you want to be an entrepreneur, understand that an entrepreneur requires the understanding of strategy, marketing, business model, value proposition, uh, empathic appreciation, and understanding of the target audience, the ability to either directly communicate or find an operative who can do that, uh, a revenue approach that that is sustainable, positioning. And if you don't look at all those things, you just go out there sort of it inspired superficially.
Yeah.
You're gonna at very best underperform the potential, and at very worst be handed your head.
Yeah. Well said. Really well said. I love that. Yeah. Jay, you have been a blast to talk to. We do have a couple speed round questions. You ready?
Oh, am I supposed to answer instantaneously?
The speed. Yeah.
We have confidence in you.
Yeah. You can take a breath. You can take a breath in between. Yeah. Favorite book and why?
It's a dual book, My Life in Advertising and Scientific Advertising by Claude Hopkins. He wrote it in the 30s. He was the father of direct response, reason why advertising. He personally created all these success stories that are amazing, but he identified all kinds of measurable marketing. He wrote one book, which is a distillation of his principles, another book that shows you all the experiences he encountered to cause him to formulate those principles all through history, all through marketing history up to now. Those books are the Bible. Everyone should read it. Somebody publishes an integration of the two, CLAUDEHOPKINS. I read it 50 times and it totally redefined my thinking. I think anybody who has anything to do with direct response marketing, which should be all of you, needs to read it. It has total translatability to any form of marketing, including social media.
I love it.
Favorite business role model?
Let's see. Oh, there would be two. I like Warren Buffett just because of his looking at the long game and his being very, very based on very solid, enduring principles. There was a guy that was a bad boy, but he was brilliant back in the 70s. His name was Jimmy Ling, and he was the father of what is called redeployment. He would buy a business that was public for X, we get control of it. Then he would break all the units out and put them public, and he would create hundreds of millions of dollars of value from scratch. And it was pretty amazing. I've learned to translate that. And there's probably one more that everybody should study. And it's Deming, who was the father of process improvement and understood variability. And variability is something people do not grasp. They get it sort of when they do optimization for their Facebook ads, but that's the outer periphery. Variability applies to all kinds of things. We've tested different ways of greeting somebody at the front door of a big furniture store and tripled 3 times results just by testing variable approaches. So, yeah, I'd say I like Warren Buffett just because of his foundational beliefs, and I think they are enduring. I like enduring because things change all the time. I like Jimmy Ling, but not because of his business ethos. He was a little fast and too ambitious, and he imploded because he got too acquisition crazy. And I really thought that Deming was really cool because he taught variability and process improvement, and how 8 different elements improved 10% would be like hundreds of percent improvement in the outcome. I could go on, but those are they.
Yeah. Jay, I appreciate every second of everything that you shared and your time. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to meet you. Thanks for all the wisdom and everything you shared today. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you so they can get access to you and all of your incredible information.
Sure. Well, if you're not a reasonably sized company, we have a pretty cool website called Abraham.com. And I've tried to be a great benefactor. I think we give away something like 800 hours of audio, video, and some thousands of pages and a bunch of books. If you're big enough that you represent being a client or a revenue generating partner, send an email to jay@abraham.com. And I appreciate it. I hope this has achieved whatever your intention was from me.
No, it's been great. I love listening to everything that you had to talk about. Randy, I'll let you close from here, but Jay, it's a couple comments that we've gotten are, what a legend you are, and it's great to meet a legend and a pioneer who still has the grit, the passion, and is just in the day-to-day doing what you love to do and helping other people. So
that's very nice.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank that person. That's nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
thanks so much.
Sentiment, and you've enhanced tremendous value today for me as a professional. I know for many people that are watching, and I want to apologize for John Dwoskin discounting your true value. He mentioned 21.7 million. By my calculations, have enhanced another 5.3 billion using the euro conversion. So using the euro, you're worth about 26 billion.
That's hilarious. I love it. I'll tell you something for anyone. I don't know what the scope of your viewers are, but the methodology and the concepts I talked about, I've been very blessed. We've used these around the world. We have the #1 cosmetic surgery group. It's got 87 offices in Japan. We have the #1 candy company in China. We have all kind of the #1 guy who teaches the cosmetic salons in Japan. We have them all over the world, and I'm not saying that arrogantly. I'm saying it heartfelt to everyone. These are universal principles. They're not limited to one industry. They're not limited to the United States or North America. They're only limited to your perception of how realistic they are for you.
Yeah. Well said. That's a great way to end another episode of Mindset Live. Jay, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And I apologize to everyone for my lateness. I was flubbing up on hitting the right link.
No worries. We'd love to have you on again, Jay. And thank you so much. Randy, always fun. Jay, glad to meet you.
All right.
Thanks,
thank
everybody.
you very much.